Welcome back, future EMTs. Here are 10 more questions in the National Registry exam category of EMS Operations. We'll go over 10 questions in detail. We'll explain the right and wrong answer choices and common pitfalls in these questions. So, grab a piece of paper and be prepared to pause the video so that you can come up with an answer on your own before we get into the details. Good luck. Question 1. You are the first EMT to arrive at the scene of a 3-car collision on a busy highway. One vehicle is smoking and there is fluid on the road. What is your first priority? A. Begin triaging patients. B. Remove victims from the smoking car. C. Establish command and begin scene size up. Or D. Request additional ambulances. Pause here if you need a second, and then we'll reveal the answer. The answer is C. Establish command and begin scene size up. Here's why. A is wrong because triage is important, but only after ensuring scene safety. B is wrong because removing victims before confirming scene safety risks your life and theirs. Not good. C is correct because as the first arriving unit, you must size up the scene and establish command under the ICS systems. If you need a refresher on ICS, check out some of our other videos. D is important, but not the very first action. So for this question, think about your first priority at multi-vehicle or multi-casualty incidents. Students often jump straight to triage or rescue, even though it could be life-threatening, skipping the critical step of scene size up, which could then put them in danger. They may also forget that EMTs establish command in ICS when arriving first. This is normal. Question 2. Which color triage tag would you assign to a patient who is apneic until you reposition their airway and then begins to breathe spontaneously? A. Red. B. Yellow. C. Green. Or D. Black. The answer is A. Red. Here's why. A is correct because this patient is in respiratory distress, but can breathe on their own with intervention, qualifying them as intermediate, but not black tag. Yellow is for delayed patients who can wait for treatment. Green is for minimal care. This patient needed a life-saving intervention. Repositioning the airway is a life-saving intervention. And black tag is for deceased or expectant patients. This patient began breathing, and so they're no longer deceased or expected to be. So this question is about triage tagging an apneic patient who responds to airway repositioning. The common pitfall here is that it could be confusing because spontaneous breathing is not the same as adequate breathing. Just remember the differences. Think about these things. Choosing black too quickly if the patient was apneic at first is a common pitfall as well. I can see why, but just know, if you can reposition their head, it is the only thing you can do while you are going through triage, only medical intervention. In some locales you can do a tourniquet, but besides that we do not go through any treatments during triage except for repositioning the airway. And so this is something you can do if that qualifies the patient because they start breathing again, then they're immediate and not deceased. So don't underestimate the importance of airway repositioning as a life-saving intervention, especially during triage. Question 3. You suspect elder abuse in a patient who has inconsistent explanations for bruises. What should you do? A. Ignore it unless the patient confirms abuse. B. Call Adult Protective Services from the scene. C. Report suspicions according to local protocol. Or D. Wait until transport is complete to document your findings. Pause here if you need a second, and then we'll get into the answer. The answer is C. Report suspicions according to local protocol. Here's why. A is wrong because EMTs are mandated reporters in many states. Ignoring it is a failure of duty. B is wrong because calling from the scene could break privacy or escalate the situation unnecessarily. Remember, scene safety is not a one-time thing. It is not static. It is constantly evolving. And just as we need to pay attention for ways things can go south, we need to ensure we don't help things go south. C is correct because you need to follow your mandated reporting duty based on state and local protocol. When in doubt, report it. I've been in a lot of situations where at a hospital or nursing home or daycare center or something else, we get pulled aside by somebody who says, hey, I'm kind of on the fence about reporting, but I think we need to do it anyways. We know very much so it's going to be a headache for all parties involved, including the parents, especially if they're well-meaning parents, and this injury or illness happened accidentally. But it's important that these systems function. It's important that we pass things along the chain of command so that maybe safety issues can be uncovered and we can save people who are suffering from abuse, particularly the elderly and children. D is wrong because delay may result in lost opportunity to protect the patient. Don't be too early, don't be too late. Follow your mandated reporting duty according to your state and local protocols. The common pitfalls here is believing confirmation of abuse is required. The person may not always know they're being abused, may be in denial, even though they know the actions against them are not healthy. Not knowing that suspicion alone is legally enough to trigger a report is another common pitfall of EMTs. If you have that suspicion, go ahead and report it. And don't just think that documentation alone satisfies your legal duty. Don't just document it. Make sure you report it according to your local protocols. Question 4. Which of the following is a primary goal of the Incident Command System, ICS? A. To reduce the number of agencies on scene. B. To assign blame following a major incident. C. To ensure safety and efficient resource management. Or D. To centralize all command decisions under law enforcement. Pause here for a second if you need a second to think. The correct answer is C. To ensure safety and efficient resource management. Here's why. A is wrong because ICS enhances coordination, not reduces agencies. Efficiency is great, does not always guarantee we're going to reduce the amount of agencies involved. B is wrong because ICS is not investigative or punitive. C is the correct answer because ICS is designed for clear roles, safety, resource efficiency, beautiful coordination. And D is wrong because law enforcement may be involved, but not always in command. The common pitfall here is thinking that ICS is really just to reduce the agencies or centralize control under law enforcement. That's not the case. Don't forget that ICS is designed for interagency coordination and cooperation, not exclusion, not punishment. If you need a refresher on ICS, we have a whole series of those videos. Highly encourage you to check those out. Question 5. You're responding to a potential HazMat situation. Which of the following is most appropriate? A. Approach upwind and uphill and then attempt rescue. B. Wait at a safe distance and contact HazMat teams. C. Immediately evacuate nearby civilians. Or D. Enter the area if you can't see any fumes. The answer is B. Wait at a safe distance and contact HazMat teams. Here's why. A is wrong because direction is correct. You're upwind or uphill, but entry without the proper PPE, not safe. B is correct because scene safety is paramount. It's a common theme if you haven't figured it out here. HazMat teams are trained for entry. They have the right PPE. They have the right detection tools. Let them do that if you are not trained, equipped, and authorized to do so. C is wrong because you only evacuate if trained and safe to do so. And D is wrong because fumes may not be visible. Visual clearance is not proof of safety. The common pitfalls here are approaching the scene without the correct PPE because it, quote unquote, looks clear. That's never a good rule. Believing it's your role to evacuate or attempt rescue is not good. Know your roles, know your capabilities, know your responsibilities. If you're not trained and authorized to do so, just because you are a first responder to that scene, do not attempt rescue. And the last common pitfall is misjudging how dangerous unseen chemicals can be. There are a lot of chemicals that get transported that don't have the agent that they normally add to things so that we can detect them, like propane and other types of noxious gases that may be deadly to humans because they displace oxygen. And sometimes they're transported before they add the agent to them that makes propane smell bad, which is an additive so that we know when there's propane leak. And just in general, things like carbon monoxide, which we know very well, doesn't always smell like exhaust. So you can misjudge how dangerous something that you can't see or can't smell or can't taste is. Just be careful. Appreciate the potential risk. Question 6. While transporting a mentally impaired patient, they become increasingly agitated and attempt to remove their seatbelt. What is the best course of action? A. Continue driving and try to calm them down verbally. B. Restrain them with assistance when it's safe to stop. C. Use soft restraints immediately and call the police. Or D. Release the patient if they are a danger to themselves. The answer is B. Restrain them with assistance when it's safe to stop. Here's why. A is wrong because a distraction can impair your driving and endanger both of you. B is correct because safety comes first. Stop in a secure location, get help if needed. C is wrong because restraints may be necessary, but immediate use without assessment is inappropriate. And D is wrong because you cannot abandon a patient unless the scene becomes unsafe. Now, granted, in this case, the scene is becoming unsafe, which is why we try to get ahead of things and see these sorts of risks before they become reality. The common pitfalls here are either continuing to drive while distracted or applying restraints without first stopping and evaluating, and not knowing that EMTs must still balance patient rights with crew safety. A good thing to keep in mind are protocols for different systems. You might work in a EMS system that requires you to do one thing or another. For instance, in a lot of situations, prison transport, particularly prison transport by helicopter, is sometimes, in some systems, always done with restraints, even if the person is not at that moment a particular risk to themselves or others, just because you don't want to get yourself into a situation in a small helicopter where you're fighting with the patient while still trying to fly the plane, and you don't have enough people to adequately restrain the person, and the weight is shifting back and forth in the small helicopter. Recipe for disaster. In some cases for ground transport, that's the case too. Follow your local protocols. Always remember that you need to be checking for PMS or CMS, whichever acronym you learned, in each extremity that you restrain, before and after you restrain them, and then, in an interval after that while they're restrained. Question 7. Which document typically outlines the responsibilities and scope of practice for EMTs? A. Good Samaritan Law. B. HIPAA. C. Standard Operating Guidelines, SOGs. Or D. Mutual Aid Agreements. The answer here is C. Standard Operating Guidelines, or SOGs. Different jurisdictions might call it differently, SOPs or for Standard Operating Procedures, or Ps and Ps for Policies and Procedures. This version of that document in your system is going to be the one that typically outlines the responsibilities and scope of practice for EMTs. Here's why. Good Samaritan laws protect lay responders from liability. What that means is you're out at a coffee shop and somebody falls and has a seizure next to you. You render some aid to that person until the ambulance arrives with, whatever additional resources. There are certain rules that may protect you in your treatment and care for that person in that time. When you have the duty to act and you are authorized to do so and all that good stuff, Good Samaritan laws do not apply. HIPAA is wrong because HIPAA governs patient confidentiality, not your EMT scope of practice. C is correct because the SOGs define expected practices and protocols based on certain scenarios, including scenarios that you may not be immediately authorized to do, but may be authorized to do with online medical control. That's when you call the hospital, explain what's going on, and they say, yes, we approve your use of this drug at this dose for this patient. And D is wrong because mutual aid refers to interagency collaboration, not job duties. The common pitfalls here are confusing legal protections like Good Samaritan laws with operational guidelines. Follow your system's local operational guidelines. Some cases these are from the state, some cases these are from the county, and then there will be additional guidelines for your particular agency. And another common pitfall is not recognizing that your SOGs are agency-based rules defining EMT roles. And so learn the difference between some of these. And as you get your first job and they start to refer to some of these documents where you can find them, definitely pay attention to where you can find them. That'll really help you understand who dictates what at what level of, government, protocol, agency, and so on. Question 8. During a mass casualty incident, you receive a radio order to transport a yellow tag patient before a red tagged one. What should you do? A. Refuse the order and transport the red tag patient. B, follow the order and document the deviation. C, delay transport until clarification is received. Or D, abandon both patients and await new instructions. Sorry, it looks like we jumped the gun here and highlighted the answer, but hopefully you agree. Here's why. A is wrong because refusing may violate ICS chain of command. Remember, in an ICS system, you have chain of command that you need to follow. It is important to maintain that. There are decisions that will be made above your head that you may or may not be entitled to an explanation for. Document it, continue. B is correct because orders must be followed unless they are very deliberately and specifically unsafe. If you have concerns, pass those concerns up the chain of command, particularly if safety is vague or, debatable. Otherwise document and clarify later. C is wrong because delays in an MCI can be fatal. Don't wait. And D is wrong because abandoning patients is unethical and illegal. Don't do it. Don't even do anything that could get you close to that. The common pitfalls here are believing your own judgment overrides ICS orders. That's not how it works. If you deviate from the protocols and you know that you're deviating from the protocols because of this instruction, document it. Another common mistake here is not documenting deviations from protocol. And the last common pitfall is forgetting that efficiency, not personal ethics or personal rules or your understanding and interpretation of the rules, takes priority during MCIs. For efficiency and many other reasons, these decisions might be made at a higher level. Document what you think you need to document and continue. If you have concerns, pass those up the chain of command. Trust the system. Question 9. You arrive at a scene where a child discloses that her injuries were caused by her parent. What is your legal obligation? A, treat and document only. Reporting is optional. B, notify dispatch and request child protective services. C, report to authorities as mandated by law. Or D, tell the parent what the child said to allow for defense. The answer here is C, report to authorities as mandated by law. Here's why. A is wrong because EMTs are mandated reporters. Reporting is not optional, even if you are just suspecting abuse. B is wrong because this may be part of the process, but not the full legal step. C is correct because you are legally required to report suspected child abuse, and a child telling you that they're being abused is more than enough suspicion. At least it should be. And D is wrong because confronting or informing the parent may endanger the child, and in some cases may even endanger yourself. If still on scene, they may become agitated, angry, and in some cases harmful to one or both of you. The common pitfalls here are thinking it's only necessary to report it if physical signs are present. It's not your job to do the investigation. It's your job to report suspicions you have. Trying to confront the parent or mediate can escalate the situation. Not wise, not advised. And another common pitfall is believing notification to dispatch replaces the mandated reporting. It does not. Understand your local protocols and rules and policies and procedures and report them as you are required to. Question 10. Which of the following is the best way to minimize liability when refusing transport? A, have the patient sign a refusal form without explanation. B, document thoroughly and encourage transport multiple times. C, avoid documenting specifics to reduce legal exposure. Or D, only obtain witness signatures, not the patient's? The answer is B. Document thoroughly and encourage transport multiple times. Here's why. A is wrong because signing alone does not protect you if refusal was uninformed. B is correct because clear documentation and repeated encouragement shows due diligence. Explain to them the risks up to and including permanent disability and death. Use these big words so that you can document that you advise them of the risks up to and including the biggest ones. C is wrong because omitting details increases liability risk. And D is wrong because patient signature is key. Witnesses are supplemental, helpful as well, but don't miss the patient's signature if you can get it. The common pitfalls here are relying only on patient signatures instead of documenting their mental status, understanding, and your encouragement to go to the hospital and to seek this higher level of care. And another common pitfall is avoiding details for fear of liability, when in fact, more documentation and more due diligence equals less liability for you. And so document and inform them of as many things as you can. Thanks for watching. I really hope you found these questions helpful. Please like and subscribe if you've missed even one of these questions so that we can be part of your learning journey. That really helps us out. So, as we try to grow this channel, please consider liking, subscribing, and throwing in some comments. Ask questions in the comments. If you have any, let us know your score. And if not, we'll see you in the next one.